Well, I don't know where to start, but I started painting in 1997. I'd never painted before. And just one day I was sitting in my living room and I was standing and I prayed and asked the Lord to give me something from Him and let it be something that I had never done before. And it just started from there. Every day that I got up, I just looked for things in the world or just look all around me to see if anything was different in my life. So one day, I was laying on the bed and watching HDTV, and Sam McMillan was on, and he was talking about his art. And when I looked at it, I said, I know they don't call that art. And I just, just sort of laughed and just started looking at it, and I said, I can do that. And a voice just went off inside me and said, oh, you can? What would you do? I said, I'd paint my childhood. And it clicked. I said, that's it. Paint your childhood. Because I'd always dream about, we had playhouses outside, in the woods. And so I said, I would like to see what this looked in color. But before I even started painting, I wanted to meet Sam. And he lived in Winston-Salem. And I called my aunt and asked her, because she lives in Winston, I said, do you know Sam? She said, I sure do. I said, well, I want to meet him. And I went down to Winston and she took me to his house. And I said, Sam, I can do that. He said, how do you know you can do it? I said, well, I don't know, but I know I can do it. I haven't painted anything yet, but I feel like I can do that. And he said, okay. He said, well, you paint, don't let nobody judge your work. Don't, he was real stern, hard, cold person, So I went home and I started painting. And it looked just like Sam's. I said, I just looked at it. And, people would look at it in the community. They was just like I was. This one guy said, Theresa, if you go to a show, say buy one, get one free. we just laughed at it because I had seen it. I could not even think about this being art to me. I couldn't see it. And so Sam called me one day and said, would you like to be in an art show here in Winston? I said, yes. He said, get your stuff ready and come down. He said, but stop by my house so I can see you work, what you come up with. And when I got to his house, and I went in, and he said, well, let me see you work, girl. He looked at it, and he just grabbed it and hugged it. He said, this is folk art. This is real art. And I'm looking at him, I cannot see this. So he started showing me people's books that gave him books. He said, I looked at their work, and I said, that looks just like that little stuff that I'm doing. And so from there, I said, well, we went to the show, and people looked at the work. I was so excited and happy, and I didn't sell anything. So I put the stuff in the car, went back home, and them same people said, Trisha, you sell anything? I said, no. They said, I told you to say buy one, get one free, you might have sold something. But, from I didn't let that stop me. I just kept right on painting. And I went to Morganton another day, and I seen this gallery. All I could just see is all these pretty colors with shapes, and I said, that looks just like what I do. So I went in the gallery and I was telling the lady, I do something like that. So she said, you got pictures of your work, or you have any with you? And I told her yes. So I took my work in. She looked at it, she said, this is real folk art. She called everybody around. And it's just like, I still couldn't see it. So she said, I'm gonna give you a ticket, and I want you to come to Atlanta, Folk Fest in Atlanta. She said, just put your stuff on the back of the truck again and come on down, just come on down to the show. I did that. And when I got there, you know how you dress? I said, I don't know what I should wear. Should I go to the room and get dressed up, But I was so anxious to see what folk art was till I just said, I just had sweatpants on and a big t-shirt. I went to the show. But when I got there, it's just like I met myself. Everybody had on sweatpants, big t-shirts. And that made me feel real good. And Sam was there. And he asked me had I seen the show. And I said, no. Then he said, well, I'm going to introduce you to some millionaires. I said, all of this didn't play right in my mind because, I can't imagine this. But at the end of talking to him, he introduced me to people, they said, go inside and see the show. And when I walked in that building, it's like a rush just come over me. Just something happened. I don't know what it was. It's just like it come all over me. I couldn't believe the art that I had seen. It was like real spiritual to me because I said, this is what he's been trying to tell me. It's just like fingerprints. Everybody's fingerprint is different. Everybody's art is different. And as I began to walk around and just look, I could see myself and how what I would do would fit in because I said, everybody's different. So one lady that had been to my house, when the show started, she come up to me and she said, Theresa, have you showed anybody your portfolio? And I said, no. She said, well, you have to show it to people because there are people, I didn't have anybody to take my work in. I just took it and just went there. And she said, somebody may bring you in their booth. This place looked like Super Walmart. That's how big it was. And you can't imagine going from person to person or something so much until you say, who would look at my work? But I started doing exactly what she said, and I come across one man, the artist that he had sold everything and had maybe one piece. So we went out to the truck and he looked at my work. I didn't have backs on it because I don't know anything really about painting, so I didn't know much about putting on the backs on the picture because I had just went to Lowe's hardware store and bought all of my paint. I just couldn't imagine, I said, well, where do you buy paint? All I knew was to go get little cans of acrylic paint to start, doing art. And so I just started painting from there, and when we hung the show in Atlanta, people, they started crowding around after he hung it up. And you know how there's like people in the front and then people in the back. It was almost like the people in the back was watching the people in the front. And when they were staring at a picture, the one in the back would walk and pick it up and buy it. Well, it went on to, I had 6 pieces left. I took about 30. And that quick, they sold. And from that point on, I've been doing shows, art shows. And I have a creativity. I go from clothes to paintings to mosaic. And I said, it's a concept, learn the basics. I just said, learn the basics and see where it goes from there for me. And I can tell you about each one of these paintings. I started here on the end. Now this painting is about when I was coming up, part of the reason I put the flag in the window is because they wouldn't allow politics in the church. You couldn't talk about politics, you couldn't discuss politics, not in the church. Now this is during the election year. I'm showing how things, they change and what's going on in the world. And the COVID, 19, you see the little, yeah, they got their masks on. And they're not in the church either because of COVID. And everybody's standing outside. And like I put like a massive amount of crosses and stones to show that the people that had died. And that's where that painting come from. And a part of that is, when you hear of people passing away, that seems like far away. But when it comes in your family, you be saying, this is really real. And to me, that's what happened. I knew a lot of people. I knew people that had passed, but when it became a part of like my family, then it's like it took on meaning to me. And I began to feel maybe what somebody else is feeling as far as the church is concerned, as far as losing loved ones. But before I get to this one, this painting here is showing, like, you see the massive amount of these people, a lot of them being alone and passing away. And then I haven't finished this yet. There's more that I'm going to put on this. But to give hope, this, if you look at this scene, this is the mountains, and this is like Table Rock. And I put that sometimes, and I'm saying their spirits are being free. And on here I put, and our spirits free from earthly ties shall take their happy flights to possess a starry crown. And this, like, they're leaving their body, they're confessing that Jesus Christ is Lord. And then, because he said every knee would bow and every tongue would confess. But then their spirits are free and they begin to descend into wherever they're going. And then I will come back here. This one is about the foot washing ceremony when I was a little girl. Now I come in the Mennonite Brethren Church too. And when they did the foot washing ceremony, the women sit on one side and the men sit on the other side. And they would wash each other's feet, and usually the young people were always sitting, like in the back, watching this happen. And it was my desire one day, I said, one day I'm gonna get my feet washed too. And by the time I was old enough, now I did get to experience it, but by the time I got to that age, they don't do it much in the church anymore. Or if they do, it's rare. Anyway, we'll move right along. Now these are like towels that I painted on, and some of these are like place settings. That's what I come up with. This to show different times in life or different things in life. Everything becomes a painting or a picture about life. And I decided to do a little book about going to camp. And these are some of the paintings that I used to put in the little book. Most of these paintings have sold. I think I got maybe 4 left. These are things that we done in camp every year in Ferguson, North Carolina. And these are, and like when we went to camp, we went on the back of a truck. And this here is one of my, I call it my famous jackets. I was at an art show in Farrington Village, and I don't know if you know Andre Leon Talley. He was at the art show, and he had bought some work from me at one time. And when he come back the next time, it was hot that day, and I put my dress and everything. I put it in the bag, left the coat in the car, and he bought some work. So I said, you know, I paint dresses too. He said, you do? Well, let me see him, Theresa. He called me that. So I took the dress out, and I modeled it, turned around and showed him, and his mouth just fell open. He just started looking at it. He said, Theresa, that is so whoopee. That is so whoopee. It's her birthday. I didn't get her anything for her birthday. I'd like to get that for Whoopi Goldberg. So he bought it for Whoopi. He bought the coat and the dress. And she wore it on The View. She's twice. She wore it. And now for me, that was very exciting, you know, to know somebody out there. So the day he called me that she was going to be on the show, he said, Theresa, where are you? I said, I'm in Walmart. He said, well, go home and look at the TV. Whoopi Goldberg's wearing your outfit today. So I rushed home to get to the TV. So that is where, so I made me another one. And this here is Mama ice. She's making ice cream. And when Mama made it, she made the best ice cream in the world. That's the only way I can describe it. She would even, she could just make any kind of ice cream, like sherbet, or she would make like a creamy vanilla or chocolate, whatever. And, you know, she'd put the ice in, we'd just churn and churn. You know, everything was exciting about it, and I'm just showing, we wanted everybody in the neighborhood, you know, come, Mama's making ice cream. And at the end, we all sitting around somewhere real sleepy, where we didn't eat so much, she let us eat so much, you know. And so that picture, it just these things hit my mind, and I just paint, and it just, it's like you pulling stuff out of your memory and looking at it to see this is what it must have felt like during that time when we were small, or when we were little, and she was doing that. You know, you say, what a great time in life that was. For me, that's the way I felt, and that's the reason I could paint that. And we would always tell her, Mama, I love you. And she'd say, I know it. You know, because she had 13 kids, and I was number 14. She raised me. She's my grandmother, but she raised me. So, you know, imagine having all those children. I don't know what these women would do today, you know. And this painting right here, somebody asked me to paint, the verse is, there is no greater agony than to bear an untold story inside you. So they said, Theresa, and then Maya Angelou, that's in one of her poems, and they said, paint a picture to that. So this is what I come up with, because I knew she was raped as a child, and I said her life was probably gray, and it looked like there's no hope in the whole picture, because there's nothing here. But here in the frame you see hope. That's what I looked at. I said, I will put on this frame, this side, she's seen a glimpse of hope, and she went with hope. And you know, you don't stay where you are, you just keep moving. And this painting here is the most important painting of all. I say people, where I live, they say, do you know Miss Mayberry Jones? And they said, either they said yes, or I don't think I know her. She was one of the, in our community, she was the most, to me, one of the most spiritual people in the community. It's like when she prayed, things happened. And a lot of times she would, when something real bad happened, you would call Miss Bergen. And she would go in her basement in the cellar, and it looks good to compare to what it really looked like. You know, and that's where she kept all her canned food, but that's where she went to pray when it's like she wanted to really speak to God, and she prayed in the spirit. And when, I'm telling you, when she come out there was a change. People that knew her or had heard of her, they would call home, I don't care where they lived in this country. They would call back and say, get Miss Bergen to pray, or get the women in the community or in the church to start praying. But they really asked for her. And a lot of things that I went through in my life, like things that I didn't think I would make it through, like going through a divorce, I went to her, and she never gave you an answer from herself. She'd always give you an answer from what the Word said. And she said, Theresa, is he saved? She was very soft-spoken. And I said, I don't think so. She said, well, the Word says, and she tell you where the scripture was. If the unsaved decide to leave the saved, you're not held in bondage. I said, okay. But it's not like, well, at that moment, it was like, I wasn't looking for a way out, but I didn't want to be in bondage to live out the rest of my life connected to somebody that really didn't want me. So, anyway, that set me free that day. I knew I could live on, and I wouldn't have to live that way. But it's so many things like that, and that she could sit and talk to you, and I can paint I paint a lot of pictures about her. She got 2 sons still living, and one, when I talked to him, he'll say, Theresa, I had a great mother. You know, and he talks just like she's right in the room, and you know, he's in his 80s now, and we still having these conversations, and you know, about people and things, and you know, you take what you learn from her, and it's like you have to learn how to pray for yourself, you know, pray in the Spirit for yourself. It taught you how to take the different steps in life. And if you have any questions about anything, you can ask, and okay.
This is not the first time I've heard you talk, you know, and before, like today you started about when you first started painting, you started there. But I remember one talk where you were talking about being in West Virginia, growing up in the holler there, but then you mentioned going to camp, and you said that was in Ferguson. So at what age did you leave West Virginia and come to this area?
Okay, I was born in Filbert, West Virginia, in Holler number 9. And they began to close the mines down, and Daddy moved the family to North Carolina when I was 5 years old.
Okay. So some of the things that you painted in West Virginia, you were quite young then, but you still remember those?
Now, let me tell you what, I can remember the houses, like it would be a row of houses, that's what they call them, a row of houses. And each house, it would be yellow, white, green, and gray, but it was the same makeup. Then there were outhouses on the outside of the house, and it was like a double, so one side was for one family and one side was for our family. And then it had a sidewalk. Then it had a road, then you went up a little bank, and then that's where the train was. And I can just see that. And I have painted, you know, like once Daddy moved us to North Carolina, my memory, I remember things. I remember the school 3-room schoolhouse. It had a stove, and the stove was in the center of the building, but it had 3 rooms to keep all these rooms warm. And then I remember, like, after they closed, like when we go back as children, because Daddy continued to live there till he retired, and he moved to number 7, but we would go up to number 9 to look at where we used to live. And you know, we'd go where the schoolhouse used to be. Everything was on a hill or a mountain, and we would just run down that slate, and we didn't know how dangerous that was. We would just be, and then the mines were still there, and you know, as children, you don't see the danger, but there it is. That's when I was.
Well, one of my favorite pictures of yours that I have is one where you children are going out at night to the outhouse, and you have the torches, and it's, you know, keeping the, you said it was to keep the bears away. It has,
Yeah, I got one.
there ain't no bears out tonight or something.
Daddy killed them all last night.
Yeah, and
And everything was a song with us. Daddy, we say they're just like a bunch of hummingbirds. And it was like we would just sing, you know, everything we would just sing and sing. Everything was a song. And, you know, you don't think much about it like when you're little because Daddy is right there. And the greatest memory for me with Daddy was with singing was John Henry, singing John Henry the song. I thought Daddy made up that song. I didn't know it was. A grown person. And the lady come in and she said, she bought a book to give to me from, they were discontinuing the book at the library, and it was John Henry. You could have knocked me out. I said, I never heard of that before. And I said, Daddy, I thought Daddy made that song up. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. But that was one song that, you know, you sung to the kids or whatever. And when we go to the toilet at night, you know, you had to get everything, everybody had to go at one time. You better go at, you know, because they would say, now if you don't go to the toilet now, nobody's going to get up at night and go outside late to the toilet. So everybody would get up, you make sure.
Go together.
Yeah. And, you know, somebody have to hold the fire, you know, in case you snake or anything like that. And, you know, you didn't think nothing of it.
How many siblings do you have?
There is, now, with my grandmother, you having 13 kids.
Yeah.
My biological mother, she had 6 children. So everybody it was always children.
Yeah.
Children, you know.
Kids and grandkids, all
Yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
Cousins.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of the time it was always, because everybody had so many children, Mama said, now, don't y'all leave the premises. Don't leave this house today. And if you would say, Mama, I'm bored, she said, well, get outside and play. And you would go outside and you would, or Mama, I'm bored. We'll get outside and sweep the yard. Because we couldn't grow, the grass wouldn't grow because, you know, if you're playing in the yard all the time, you don't give the grass time enough to grow. So either you had to sweep the yard or you had to pretend you had a playhouse outside, and you know, you took the old cans, you made shelves, and you had it decorated, everything real pretty. I said, now I know that had to be where all of my art and all that has to come from, because that's, you know, this is where, you know, just everyday living. And you could always remember, you know, you didn't know that it was hard times, the bad times. We didn't know that. Daddy would always say, girl, the basic things in life is keep a roof over your head, stay warm, and something to eat. All over that is a luxury. So, you know, when you're in the house, you got all that. You said you had everything that you needed. You know, he worked as a coal miner, and it's like, now that I'm older, it was like you lived one way in West Virginia, then you had to come back to, you know, he was coming back to North Carolina, so that was a different, it's like you looked at a different era in life. In North Carolina, you know, that gunshot house, the houses wasn't made like that in West Virginia. They looked more like townhouses, real big houses, but it was still that. Now that when I go back to West Virginia, it's like West Virginia hasn't changed that much, because some of those old houses, everything is really sort of the same. You know, I went to like Bluefield not too long ago, and it's like you stepping back in time, the old big houses, and you know, I don't even like it dark. I don't want to be in West Virginia. You know, they don't have street lights, and you just down so far in the mountains. You know, when it's dark, it is dark in West Virginia. But now that I'm in North Carolina, you know, I like North Carolina and I like Lenore. So, but this is where it is. Okay.
So you said your dad came back to North Carolina, so his family was from here originally?
Yeah, Daddy was born, I don't know if you ever heard of Darby. That's in Wilkes County. Now that's really, you know where Ferguson is. Darby's even deeper in the
Rural,
country.
yeah.
And Daddy was the type, you know, every Sunday, you know how people used to go for rides? He would take us for a ride on Sunday. It would be to Darby. And this is what would happen every week. You remember, you know, I know you know the story of Tom Dooley and Laura Foster. Just the time that he could see where the grave was, he would either start singing the song or telling the story.
Every week?
Huh?
Every
time we passed that grave, Daddy would start saying, and we would always, he said, here it comes. And so, you know, he would sing that song, he would sing it, he would sing it, he would sing it. And then the flood of 1946, I think, or 47, he would tell, and this is because he come up in Darby, so that was big news. Anyway, I went to Caltech, took a class, and we had to do a story on the Blair of Tom Dooley. And that just tickled me. I said, I'm finally getting to hear, you know, a book, see a book. But anyway, I had to do a report, and I'd never really done anything like that in front of people before. So I get up, and I just started singing Tom Dooley, the song Tom Dooley, and then I just started talking about it because I've heard it every week. We see, and Daddy, he said, here he goes. Everybody said, here he goes. And he talked about Laura Foster and Tom Dooley. And you would think it happened yesterday. And one day I was doing this lady's hair, and she was 97. So, you know, I said, did you ever hear about Tom Dooley? Lord, yes, honey. My grandmother went with her to court. They walked the stage. I said, I can't believe this. I can't, but, you know, she said that. She had been recorded, you know, about her participating in that. So that's how, you know, you just hear stories. You say, I'm going to paint this picture, see what it looks like. I'm going to get it out.
Could you just refresh our memory? Because I've heard the name, but I don't know the story really that I remember. I don't either. I'm not from
Hang down your head, Tom.
Yeah, they would sing, he would say, hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Hang down your head and cry. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley. Poor boy, you're bound to die. Met her on the mountain. Stabbed her with my knife. Met her on the mountain. And there I took her life. And it goes on and on and on and on. The song tells the story. It's about a love story. It's like Laura Foster, Tom Dooley, and
what was her name? The other woman?
Not Melton.
anyway,
It's a love triangle.
And there's still people who will argue vehemently over who really killed Laura Foster.
yeah,
Because a lot of people think Anne,
yeah,
whatever her name was, killed Laura Foster out of jealousy. And other people say that Tom Dooley did it because he didn't want to marry her, he wanted to marry Anne. So,
And there's like a child out of wedlock or like
Yeah.
STDs involved, and he was a Civil War veteran.
Yeah.
I met somebody around here whose grandpa was the sheriff that caught Tom Dooley over in Tennessee.
And that was
Yeah.
local.
And
It happened in Wilkes County.
Darby?
Well,
Darby.
Tom Dooley
No,
was
it's-
buried in Ferguson.
Yeah, it was married in
Laura-
Ferguson, you know where
Laura
Happy
Foster's-
Valley, Ferguson,
Highway 260, it's right at the bottom of the
Happy.
mountain, just north of Lenore, but south of here.
Patterson.
And you can go up, 268 is a beautiful drive, but you
Mhm.
go towards Wilkesboro, and Laura Foster's grave is in a field on the right. It'd be hard to find if you didn't know there is a little marker on the left, but
Yeah.
again, that's hard to find if you don't know.
yeah, it's sitting out in a field, and it's got,
Little fence around.
yeah, little things around, you can tell it's a grave
But
there.
because that's where your father lived, it
Yeah.
was so ingrained in him, that
Yeah.
story, I guess.
Yeah,
So he did get hung?
yes,
He did. But there are a lot of people who say unjustly. Early arguments
I'll
against
have to read about that.
capital
Oh, wow.
And what time frame was that?
It was after the Civil War.
yeah,
And then that song is kind of responsible for the folk revival of the 1950s and 60s because the Kingston Trio heard a recording of it and then made the worst recording ever of it. But then that brought
The
people
most
here
famous recording.
searching for the story of Tom Dooley and searching for artists that recorded those songs. And then that ended up leading to Doc Watson getting discovered. So just like a fun little thing with the story of Tom Dooley.
Big circle there, huh?
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, Daddy, like I would, like when a child was born, and the smaller kids always around him, and another song was John Henry, and I paint like a story, about John Henry, and I'm not I don't think about, because I've never heard anything about John Henry except from Daddy, and he would always put a little child on his knee and just start singing. And he said, John Henry was a little boy. He was sitting on his daddy's knee. He heard of a blasted big stone gap. He said, that'll be the death of me, Lord, Lord, Lord. That'll be the death of me. Well, it went from verse to verse. And when he got to, when he talks about John Henry, it makes you think about in the coal mine, because Daddy was a coal miner. And to find out he didn't make that song, that was really heartbreaking. It was. But now I can paint about that, and we could be at my house when the family comes home. Somebody's gonna start singing. And we're gonna sing, John Henry, and everybody knows their verses. And the other kids, they just can't, they can't wait to just hear this song. And that's what I like about you remember T.C. Ernie Ford. Well, he sung a lot of songs. That's what you heard on Saturday, and I said that's where Daddy's getting a lot of this from. He knew a lot of, he sung too. So we sung. And like I could see the picture. And and then I said, that's where I'm gonna paint this, to see what it looked like. Well, maybe I can get a glimpse, but more the feeling that I get in the inside. And you just get these feelings about it. This is how it was. And like with Mama now, her thing was, let me get you looking in the mirror today. How you start in front of me thinking you pretty, you put on your makeup and all this. And we had a habit, in the living room, it's like a mirror. And you would walk past the mirror, you stand there looking at yourself. Mama's thing was, let me catch you looking in the mirror today. And when you walk by, you just glance up at the mirror to see, but you didn't want Mama catching you. And this is you know, these are like little things that went on in the house. You say, wow. You look back at that and you say, cause she said, felt like you being naive or something. You know, you shouldn't do that. And as the times got like a little modern with Daddy, his thing was the telephone. Daddy liked to play cards. And he said, I don't want to catch any of you young'uns on that phone today. He said, how you gonna live without a phone? You would put the phone, so the phone would ring, and Daddy said, don't touch that phone. You know, you'd be about to die. So, you know, the first phone, you know, you could, when they stopped, you know, doing your finger, we would put something on the button so it would ring anyway. And that took Daddy he just couldn't believe it. He said, that thing rings anyway. But he said a bad word in the midst of it. But after I left home, they said that they fixed a box, some kind of box outdoors, so that they could talk, have to go outdoors and talk. They go around the house and had a box fixed where they could talk on the phone. Because he didn't like to talk on the phone. If he did, he held it out here. And like, he didn't want to talk on it. And he didn't want to hear you on it either. So they had to put something outside.
What year was your dad born?
Daddy was born in 1909 or 1907. It's one of the two. And so everything, you know, for him was
Modern technology.
I mean, we had like good times, but Daddy, he was a case. And you know, we can still get, like I said, together. We were just together Memorial Day. And I got a brother. He walks in the house. He started walking up and down the hallway. He said, I bet this house can tell some stories. I know Theresa heard some of Granddaddy's stories. I mean, they go on just like you. They think, Daddy, Kim, I have an aunt lives in Nashville. Mama, your baby girl is at home. Your favorite daughter is home. And Mama, I know you back there. Now this is the conversation she's having. That time she gets out of the car, there's an uncle, 90. Mother, I'm home. He come up on. He was here on he come home on Mother's Day. He drove from Greensboro to put flowers on Mama's grave. And it's just like, you were saying, they think they still hear something. We even asked Mama, let me film you making cooking, because she was a great cook. I'm just not saying that. She said, I could cook a rock and y'all would eat it. That's how good. You know, she could just cook. She said, but no, all y'all would do is sit around and cry. So she wouldn't let us film her. She said, because all y'all would do was just sit around and cry. So she wouldn't do it. She knew her children. Because now it's like everybody get together and it's a grandma, granddaddy story. And I watch the young kids, you know, when they bring them back to the house, they've never been there. There's one, my aunt's great grandson, he'd never been to Illinois. So he was there, you know, for Memorial Day. And I said, I'm gonna watch him. And they wanted to get a shovel and to start digging in the dirt. I said, what is that about? They just wanted to just start digging. And then he said, can I take some of these rocks home? He's real proper, he's from Delaware. So he picked up rocks. He said, do you have a box? And I said, yeah. So he took a box of rocks home back to Delaware with him. Then a little nephew from Winston, they were playing together. And they just picked up rocks and just making holes in the ground. And now my aunt said he wants to know when can he come back. And then my nephew lives in Colorado. His little girls, they been there one time. All they talk about is bush town and being at the house. And it's, to me, it's like they act like they're in a fairy tale. You know, it's like wherever they can sleep, as long as they all together and just having fun, just like they're in a camp somewhere. And when they get away, they want to come back to that place. So I painted the place up, and I said, now I'm going to mosaic everything that I can. I like that, and that's just something that I started. I got 3 pieces, and I'm on my 4th piece.
Do you use broken dishes or?
I have broke up so much glass. And you know, not glasses, but you know, I'm gonna tell you what that I've learned. Well, you learn that they say don't use plates like outside too much. You know, you use more like towel, and I'm just trying to get the basics. And I said I'm learning. So whatever I got, you know, I said it's trial and error, and you know, it's just more color I'll have in the yard, you know, just to see, and see when they come, I can just mix up something. I said, you know, let's make this today, and just get their little ideas, and so they can feel like, oh, I'm in grandma's house. This is my great grandma's house, and that's, you know, and they feel like that is theirs. And when they come, I just feel like they at home. I'm at home. We all home, but it's mama's house and daddy's house. So that's good. Anybody have another question? No.
I was just gonna comment about being a coal miner, that's hard work.
Yeah, he went 4 miles, 2 to 4 miles underground, and Daddy's daddy got killed in the mine. And they said when he died, Daddy come back home on the train with his daddy. And that's his mother, Daddy's mother, she lived in West Virginia. I don't know how she got back to North Carolina, but she come back and finished raising her children in North Carolina. And a lot of the family lived in, you know, that come back, they come back to North Carolina and some to Ohio, but it was because they shut the mines down. But he continued to stay until he retired. He did. And, you know, Daddy, he provided for his family. He would, you know, my uncle that's 90, when he looked at my paintings, he said, I didn't know that life. I said, you didn't? He said, no. You know, it looks poor and like, you know, if people don't have nothing. He said, no, Daddy had my suits made. I never did get to wear dungarees till I was grown and married. He said, he always would make me dress in a suit and wear ties. I said, I looked at him, and he just laughed because he said, I didn't know that. You know, how y'all were, you know, living. He said, because he was the first child, and they lived in West Virginia, and I guess money, living out there is like a city in the country, but you just have to be there to experience it. And I just listened to him. I said, it's hard to believe. He said, no, I didn't live like that.
Do you think he felt like he didn't have a happy life, or it was just different? I mean,
Who, my uncle?
yeah, because it
Oh.
seems like these kids are having fun and they're
Yeah, but
overdoing
he's happy, you know, because he's the first child and I guess spoiled, and well, I call it spoiled, but he just said he always wanted to wear a pair of blue jeans, and Daddy wouldn't let him wear blue jeans. And when I was, well, most of the time we wore, if you wore jeans, if you went to school, you had to wear a dress. We couldn't wear pants to school. If you did, you had to have a dress over top of it. So I don't feel like he felt like he had done without anything. I think, to me it was a lot of happy moments, to the point, the worst, I guess you can call it the worst thing. The worst thing for me is that I could not believe Mama could die. That was the worst part of life to me. I could not, you said, how did your mama die? And the main thing that kept bothering me about that was, I forget what other stuff she tried to teach me. And it's just like, it's ingrained. Some people say, treat you just like your granddaddy, you talk just like your granddaddy. Or I could find myself doing things like Mama. I felt like I decorated, but now it's like I'm decorating from that era, the things that I've seen. Like people just giving me like old iron beds and quilts. It's like I go from one extreme to another, collecting. I get into quilts, I'm collecting quilts. I get into glass, I'm collecting glasses. Just whatever comes for the day, every other month or something. And it's like a drive. Then you say, why are you collecting this stuff? And you say, I gotta clean. And I go out there and I said, I can't do that, I can't do that. So I said, if I mosaic, if I hang it in the trees or whatever, just so I can look at it. I don't know, maybe I just want to look at it.
Good memories. Happy
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, happy times. And I don't think the kids today know, it's only when, I'm talking about the kids in my family, when they come there, I just watch them just to see how they react to everything. They act like they always been there. And they have this freedom, they start running and playing, and Mama, when the kids, the grandkids and the great-grandkids, when she was living, it was her thing, let them get out there and play in the dirt. And they get outside and just start digging in the dirt like they lost their mind. And now the parents is like, oh, I don't, just, I just let them act, just the way, just be natural. And let them enjoy and tell stories. And they want you to just tell stories about their granddaddy, their grandma. They love that. Whatever it is, they want to hear it. So,
At some point they grow up and they're not so interested anymore, and then they come back
And
later
later,
they're interested again, so.
my nephew said, I can't wait to have children, so I can bring them back. Has he lost it? But he said, I want to bring them back and just show them where you be watching his imagination. And I want them to run and play in the yard like I run. And how I got all the children following me. He sees stuff maybe I didn't see. But he wants his children, when he has children, to come back and play in the yard. It's amazing to me. And I don't have any children.
No, it sounds like you've got lots and
Yeah,
lots.
yeah, it does, but I don't have not one. But it seems just like they come there just like Grandma's home. And that's where all this art and it's like I can hear anybody's story, and if it's a good story, I say, I'm gonna paint that picture. And I've done that a lot too, just listening to stories. And I may just paint it one time, but I just say, I want to look at it. And after that, it might be over. And then sometimes I paint and I say, how did I do that? It's amazing to me. Some stuff that I do, You know, I said, how did I do that? Where did that come from? And I don't know, I just keep doing it.
Very cool.
So